Imagine this, one of the most influential women in history, the Queen of Egypt, a ruler whose name would survive for more than 2,000 years, was betrayed by her own 10-year-old brother, not by a foreign king, not by a powerful army, not by Rome, but by a child. And the most terrifying part, he almost won. Her name was Cleopatra. And this is the story of how a family feud nearly destroyed an empire. From the moment Cleopatra was born, her destiny was different. She belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty, a royal family that ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years. But there was one problem. The Ptolemies were famous for power, wealth, and betrayal. Brothers betrayed sisters. Sisters poisoned brothers. Parents murdered their own children. Relatives plotted against one another. In this dynasty, the crown was worth more than human life, and power mattered more than family. When Cleopatra's father died, he left Egypt to two rulers, Cleopatra and her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. According to tradition, they were supposed to rule together. But Cleopatra had no intention of becoming a puppet. She was extraordinarily intelligent, charismatic, highly educated. She spoke several languages. She studied politics, philosophy, mathematics. And she could even speak directly to her people without interpreters, something extremely rare for rulers of her time. Very quickly, it became clear the real power belonged to her, and that frightened many people. Powerful advisors, generals, and court officials began to see Cleopatra as a threat. They couldn't control her. They couldn't command her. They couldn't use her for their own ambitions. So they chose another figure, her younger brother, a boy who was easy to influence, easy to manipulate, easy to turn into a weapon. Day after day, they whispered in his ear. They told him his sister wanted to steal his throne, that she wanted absolute power, that she was betraying him. And slowly, the child king began to see his own sister as an enemy. Then came the betrayal. Cleopatra's name disappeared from official documents. Her orders were ignored. Her image was removed from coins. Her supporters were hunted down. And one day she realized staying meant death. So she fled. Imagine that, the future most famous woman of the ancient world, forced to run from her own brother. She lost her throne. She lost her army. She lost her capital. But she did not lose the one thing that mattered most, her ambition. Most people would have given up. Cleopatra did not. She waited. She planned. She searched for a way back, and that opportunity arrived from Rome, the most powerful state on earth. A man feared by kings and generals arrived in Egypt. Julius Caesar. A man capable of changing the fate of entire nations with a single decision. And Cleopatra understood. This was her chance. According to legend, she secretly arranged to be delivered into Caesar's palace, hidden inside a rolled carpet. Imagine the Roman surprise. They unrolled the carpet, and standing before them was the exiled queen herself. Bold, intelligent, and willing to risk everything. Caesar was impressed, not only by her beauty, but by her confidence, her intelligence, her courage. Soon he supported her claim to the throne, and Egypt exploded into civil war. Brother against sister, king against queen, family against family. The streets of Alexandria became a battlefield. Palaces burned, ships sank, thousands died. And while the kingdom collapsed around them, two children of the same family fought for power. Eventually, Ptolemy XIII lost. He attempted to escape, but fate was merciless. His boat capsized in the waters of the Nile. The young ruler drowned. The brother who had once driven Cleopatra from her kingdom was gone forever. And Cleopatra returned, stronger, more powerful, more dangerous. But what began as a political alliance with Caesar soon became something far more dangerous, a romance. Caesar was nearly 30 years older than Cleopatra. He was already one of the most powerful men alive. a conqueror, a military genius, a living legend. Yet somehow, the young queen of Egypt captivated him. Historians still debate whether their relationship was driven by love or ambition. But one thing is certain, they became inseparable. Soon rumors spread across Egypt and Rome. People whispered about secret meetings, lavish banquets, private conversations that lasted deep into the night. For Cleopatra, Caesar was more than a lover. He was protection. The man who secured her throne. The man who could crush her enemies. For Caesar, Cleopatra was more than a queen. She represented wealth, power, and influence over one of the richest kingdoms on earth. Then came a child, a son, named Caesarion. Many believed he was Julius Caesar's son. And if that was true, everything changed. Because Cleopatra was no longer fighting only for herself. She was fighting for a dynasty, for a future, for a bloodline that might one day unite Egypt and Rome. For a brief moment, it seemed her dream was becoming reality. She traveled to Rome, lived under Caesar's protection, and watched as senators, generals, and nobles stared at her with fascination. Some admired her, others despised her, many feared her. Because they saw the influence she held over Caesar, and those fears continued to grow. Some Romans began asking a dangerous question. Was Caesar planning to become a king? And was Cleopatra destined to rule beside him? Then, everything changed. March 15th, 44 BC. The day history would remember forever. Julius Caesar entered the Senate and never walked out alive. The men around him drew their daggers. One blade, then another, then another. 23 stab wounds. The most powerful man in the world collapsed at the feet of his enemies. Dead. Rome erupted into chaos. And overnight, Cleopatra lost the one man who had protected her. The future she imagined vanished before her eyes. She returned to Egypt, alone, with a young son, and powerful enemies waiting on every side. But Cleopatra refused to disappear. Most rulers would have faded into history. She became history. Over the next years, she would build new alliances, challenge Rome itself, and become one of the most famous women who ever lived. But her story leaves one haunting question. What if she had lost? What if that young boy had succeeded in removing her from power forever? Perhaps we would not even know the name Cleopatra today. History itself might have taken a completely different path. That is what makes this story so chilling. Because sometimes the greatest threat does not come from enemies across the border. Not from foreign armies, not from mighty empires, but from those sitting beside you at the same table. Your own family. A younger brother. A jealous relative. Someone you trust. History remembers Cleopatra as one of the most influential women of all time. But few remember that her path to immortality began with betrayal. A betrayal that could have erased her name from history forever. And perhaps the most incredible part of all is that it started with a 10-year-old boy. Had he won, the world might look very different today. If you enjoy dark stories about betrayal, empires, legendary rulers, and shocking moments from history, subscribe to the channel right now. Leave a like if you want more stories like this. And tell me in the comments, which historical figure should I cover next? Because real history is far more terrifying than any movie.